As a kid, I used to live in a rather poor apartment complex, which was sizable, but there were other kids around us, and it was simple back then. Walk down the street, meet your friends before you take the bus to school, go home after a long school day and play wrestling, or sometimes we'd even do Nerf wars across the whole apartment complex. Just good, tangible fun. Life was tangible. And then things changed. Some personal grievances happened. They all happened to us, but we react differently to them. But to me, that made me not want to go outside at all with what happened and how it affected my friends and me and our relationship. The idea of talking and hanging out with them was initially daunting and scary as I spent some time away, but it eventually became boring as I found myself more engaged with the online world. I spent my time inside on the internet and in online video games, Xbox, the Wii. It became a habit, a fear that anchored me to my room, an isolation that would eventually go on for a long time during much of my teenage years. I'm older now, and as I reflect, I notice it's not just me anymore who's having or had these problems. It's everywhere now. Why? Is it the internet? The evolution of our culture? Could it even be something deeper? Something we consume, whether it's the food, media, or just new ideas? We build our towers, fortresses, if you will. These towers hold everything we think we want. Our favorite games like Team Fortress 2, hours of Badwater Basin, Doomsday servers, competitive teams, and friends we think will last a lifetime. But in those moments, if you're paying attention, you'll notice something unsettling about those days. These days blur together. Thin repetition, stagnation, static. I used to call it the gray when I was younger, when I was 18, right? Before I was familiar with realizing the adult normal world. Every day was the same. Get up, play TF2, scrim, go to bed. It's that sense of being stuck on a track, unable to change direction. Like a train bound to crash if it ever tried to derail. If you got back up on the tracks, you're still exactly where you were earlier. Philosophers like Nietzsche would have recognized this, what he called the eternal recurrence. We trap ourselves in the monotony of life because it's comfortable, it's predictable. We replay our habits and our desires over and over, even in our own minds, until they own us. But how do we get out? What prevents us from escaping monotony? Eventually, we moved on to a better home with a pool, and as I was a little bit older, I still had the same problems, but I would spend time jumping around and walking around that pool. Not skipping, that's a little too weird, but you get my gist. I had a fear of jumping into the pool. Even though I knew how to swim, it felt as though there was an invisible barrier. Like a thin film over the water I had to break through. This is similar to how we often perceive change. It's not an actual brick wall. It's not physical. It's psychological. A false sense of impenetrability. There are those who tear through these mental barriers with force, like a cannonball into the water, while others dip their toes, easing into discomfort. But for those who are scared, confused, who feel trapped in their tower of isolation, the only true answer, admittingly, is a cannonball. It's the only way out. You have to jump out that tall tower, grab your knees, and make a giant splash in the water. It's not just about diving into the water, it's about creating a splash so massive that it disrupts everything around you, forcing you to adapt, learn, and float in new water. Oddly enough, for me, my first step out of this isolation was competitive TF2. It wasn't the permanent solution, it was more like a band-aid or a recipe book for finding out how to figure out early life, but it helped me form routine, early discipline. The discipline of scrims and practice. Those little steps helped me escape the chaos of an unorganized life. The community I found through this game introduced me to people who shared the same passion. We became close, learning from each other, oftentimes, and sometimes we picked up habits, good and bad, from older players and from everything in life. It wasn't perfect, but it was moving forward. It was movement. The physical connection was missing. Communities like this are digital and ephemeral, and while they can offer camaraderie, they lack the embodied reality of, say, I guess the ancient church in older times. There were rituals and sacred spaces where people met face to face, the fasts. Today, the closest thing we get to that is gaming LAN parties where the passion is palpable. Yet, and comparable to that of like feasts, ancient feasts in any religion. Yet as time moves forward, even these have been commercialized into events devoid of that grassroots authenticity. Think of the PAX or any gaming convention. We can look at the teachings of ancient philosophy and esotericism and such. Taking a look at ancient teachings, the concept of samsara in Hinduism reflects this repeating trap, the wheel of life, death, and rebirth, which we are all bound to. The material world, with all its distractions, keeps us tethered to the cycle, in the same way that items in TF2 may hold us down as well. Those prized unusual hats, the rare weapons can begin to own us. Just like how ancient mystics sought liberation from material attachments, we too need to free ourselves from some digital chains. Think about it. Have you ever looked at gifted items online from like the community market? Sad stories, like have you ever heard the story about the garage sale and the baby shoelace? It's like, garage sale, baby shoes, never worn, like a sad haiku. Happy anniversary, honey, 25-cent strange ambassador, gifted 2014. Sale community market. These items tell stories, but in the end, they're just material possessions. They don't hold real power over us, unless we allow them to. When these things start to own you, and you know when they start to own you, you'll recognize it through the passage of time. It's time to let them go. Like the Buddhist practice of renunciation, or even any Abrahamic faith, releasing these attachments can lead to a sense of freedom. It's easy to get stuck, to let the items, the game, or the routine define your life. But the solution isn't external. The rocket jump out of the grave of the old man isn't about reaching for something outside of yourself. It's internal. You have to be willing to shatter your illusions, to break free from the patterns that imprison you. As you start to piece yourself together, things together, whether, like me, through competitive gaming initially, philosophy, or introspection, you'll find a calmness, a peace, a sense of ease. You realize that life is not meant to be lived in repetition. It's meant to be a journey of discovery. Yes, the old problems will fade and the new ones will emerge, and new ones will come down hard on you. But it's embracing vulnerability and facing the uncertainty you'll discover what it truly means to live. I wanted to thank everyone for watching this. I made this in the meantime as I've had to reset my computer due to some ongoing issues, and I've lost a lot of progress on a really long video. I was working on a premiere video, you could say. That was around 20 minutes. The audio file and footage is not a problem. I have the script, but it will take time to reconstruct it. Thank you all for your kindness, patience, and especially the reception on the 2 last videos I made. Especially that tutorial, I didn't know that would do so well. If there's anything you feel like I could cover, or anything you'd like help with, I'd love to know a topic, or just anything I could help with. I wish you all the best with yourselves, recovery, future hopes, and desires. And as always, take care and beware.